Morning, everybody, and aloha. Welcome to Just Talking 24, page 25. This morning, I'd like to talk to you about an emotion, and it's a very powerful, motivational emotion. If used, well, like anything else, if used correctly, it can be so productive. Unfortunately, it's not used that way. It is used more as a control substance rather than to help us. And that emotion is a basic human emotion. It's a human reactory emotion. And that emotion is fear. Yup, you heard it, fear. People, well, you know that I believe that the humans are herdal animals. In other words, we're a social animal. We stay together in a herd. And how do you control a herd? Through fear. Either by might, it's called fright or flight, right? It's fear, and it's a dirty four-letter word. That's like hate, fear. People have used it throughout history to control other people. Why they want this control? I guess that's the alpha thing or whatever. That's how an alpha animal governs the rest of the herd or the group or the flock or whatever you want to call it. It's through fear, through control. Fear makes equals control. We see it all the time in on TV, in our the ads, the pharmaceuticals. They tell you, well, right now the one that strikes me is the shingles vaccine. They say 99% of the senior citizens have the virus that will turn to shingle. Well, that's because when we were growing up, we didn't have the measles vaccine. The measles vaccine, I believe, wasn't introduced until the 1990s. So most of us grew up with getting the measles. We caught not measles, excuse me, the chicken pox. We caught chicken pox. That was almost like a rite of passage. In fact, they wanted you to catch it when you were a kid because catching the chicken pox when you're a kid was more tolerable and less severe than if you caught it as an adult. So kids were put together with other kids with chicken pox so that you caught the chicken pox. I mean, that was part of the I don't know if you want to call it rite of passage, but it was one of the things that the adults did. If you got, if someone had chicken pox and you didn't get chicken pox yet, hey, go hang out with that kid, go play with him, and you cut the chicken pox, and you were, and you were quarantined over, and then they put calamine lotion or, whatever lotion that they put on top um the what we used to call aois, the kakeos. That's what they're called in Hawaiian, kakeo, the sores, and you just you just weathered out the disease. So yeah, we were all exposed to chickenpox. It was like the mumps. I caught the mumps. I had the mumps 3 times. My doctor never saw that before. He goes, "How come you getting the mumps? Usually you get the mumps once. I got mine three, and it was 3 Christmas vacations in a row. It was the pits. But chicken pox was like that. And now they say, well, 99% of you, have the virus in you that you can get shingles. But they don't say 99% of the 99% are going to catch shingles. I mean, if you get it, you get it. And this injection that you're supposed to get is supposed to prevent it. Well, they don't know. They don't even know what percentage of the adults are going to get shingles. It appears that this many percentage, and you know what? That perception, I mean, that percentage is still today, even with the injection. The only thing is you don't get the Well, they say you don't get it as harsh. I've seen shingles in the hospital. It is not a fun thing. That rash is sore, and you can put on a local lidocaine salve, and that helps it a little. But yeah, for those 3 4 days, that person is in pain. But that's just part of it. But they use fear. The fear, 20% or 80%, or they'll give you percentages. And to me, it's like, um, in fact, I just saw a advertisement yesterday about the shingles thing that 20 it has a 20%, um, it helps with 20% of dementia. I mean, I don't even know how they get these numbers. Really, I don't. But yeah, pharmaceuticals, they're famous. They use fear like these life insurance companies. You don't want to leave the burden of your funeral expenses on on your loved ones. So buy this outrageously priced insurance. You pay $9.95 a month for $1,000 insurance coverage or something. I don't know how it works. I never even looked into it because I bought insurance a long time ago, which is what you're supposed to do. I mean, if you did it a long time ago, you got no problem on it. But they use the fear. They use the fear. Government is the biggest one, right? Remember Vietnam War. What did they tell us about communism and why we were fighting the Vietnam War? Because we were trying to stop the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. If the North Vietnamese took over the country, Vietnam would fall under communist rule. Then they would go to Laos. Then they would go to Cambodia. Then they would go to Thailand. It would be a domino effect. Do you remember that? And that's what they used. They used that excuse, you know, and people bought it. People bought it until we found out that it's not true. In fact, today, Vietnam as a unified nation is one of the economic powerhouses of Southeast Asia. I mean, true, they may be communistic, but they don't push the communism on us. China is communistic, yet we do open trade with them. We have people and we have tours, companies down here that people go the tours to China. They go to Beijing. And they say it's great. The Chinese people are very nice. You know, what do you believe? Do you believe the government or do you believe what you see? And people are starting to believe what they see. The government is having a hard time, folks. Look at Harvard University. Harvard University is going to pay for what they're doing. They're going to fall out of graces from the people. They're going to turn into just another university. They're not even. I mean, Ivy League is not going to be an Ivy League anymore. And Harvard and Yale and Brown and Princeton, all of them will follow the same way if they continue on the same path, and that is using fear. Fear. You got to have. If without a college education, you're nothing. Um, Look at Charlie Kirk. But then he goes the other way. It's like I told you. It's that bell curve. Okay, Charlie Kirk's on one end, and Harvard and the rest of the education system is on the other. But the majority, it's you just do with what you got. If you got toilet paper, fine. But if you can use the toilet paper and show that you know how to use it, better yet, you will go far. I promise you, you will go far. Pick up, but then you can also pick a trade. Um, I have one of my best friends. He's in drywall. He's been in drywall over 40 years. Okay. Hawaii has a up and down construction industry, right? So sometimes, I mean, and part of the construction industry. If you got work, you work. If you don't have, you go on unemployment, right? That's how we work it in Hawaii. I have to say that in over his 40 years, this man has never been laid off. Really, he's always had work. If his company doesn't have work, he's picked up by another company. And why is that? And the reason is really simple. He is that good. He is a working foreman. This guy, he knows. He's taught himself how to read blueprints, how to run jobs. I mean, he is good. And when you're that good, and he doesn't have his degree. He has an associate's degree, just a general associate's degree. But um, he proved himself. That's how good he is. And that's what you have to do with the toilet paper, And they're using this fear to control you. Do not let them use fear, please. Stay above it. But I'm not saying don't have it, okay? But control it. You try to control it. Um, they say if you meet a person who doesn't fear anything, to run away from him. And that is true. Like I said, that's the bell again. It's the other end of the bell. In my life, I've met only one person like that. And I have stayed away from him. And I didn't really, when I first met him, I didn't know who he was. But from asking associates, I found out who that person was. And I was wise to stay away from this man. This man is, well, he was dangerous. To put it very lightly, this man is very dangerous. And I stayed away. And something just told me. I mean, when I met the guy, you look in him, and you know how they call that 1,000 yard stare? Well, this guy did not have a 1,000 yard stare. This guy had a totally cold sense, just soulless, a totally dead stare. That wasn't 1,000 yards. That was beyond 1,000. That's death stare. I've only met one man like that, and you can actually feel the hairs on your neck. You feel a chill. That's how you say, well, you better just stay away from this guy. It just, you feel it. And I felt it. And I just kept my distance, and I found out who he was, and glad I did. But yeah, fear, if you can control it, not conquer it. You never conquer fear. You always use fear. Um, when I went for a job interview, they asked me, what do you do in a high pressure situation? I told him, excuse me? He goes, yeah, what do you do in a high pressure situation? And I told him, I breathe. And he goes, what? I said, I breathe. He goes, well, you don't get excited. I said, well, the first thing you try not to do is you don't panic. Anything. When I was riding my motorcycle, scenarios go through your head. One of the scenarios was, what happens if you see a car coming into you sideways? I mean, from the side, broadside. What do you do? And of course, you're going to lift your leg on the side it's going to be hit, and you're going to prepare for ejection. You run through that scenario. I had a friend who was a solo bike police officer on the motorcycle. And I told him, you're going to get a time, maybe, hopefully not, but because of, what you do, you're constantly in traffic and you're constantly moving through traffic. But you're going to get that one idiot that is not going to see you. And when that happens, you got to know what to do. And he goes, well, what do I do? I said, well, number one, you don't panic. You look for a way out. If it was like, say, a container truck turns in front of you, lay your bike down. You're gonna slide under the trailer. If he turns in front of you, hit him, but you're going to jump. You're gonna release your hands from the handlebars, and you're going up. The impact of the impact will propel you up, and then you're gonna fly over. Hopefully, you can fly that high. And sure enough, he got into an accident, and he left 67 feet of skid marks into the side of the car. And in those days, our police officers drove Harley Davidson motorcycles, and the old-fashioned Harley Davidsons, and they only had a windshield. And the farthest thing forward on his bike was that windshield. Everything was crushed under the bike. And my friend he 67 feet of skid marks into the side of the car, over the car. He flew, but what saved him was he was a fifth degree black belt, judo. So when he landed, instinct took over and he just started rolling. And he ended up just offsetting his shoulder a little. He had permanent disability, but I mean it wasn't really anything noticeable, but it was there. But he goes, what happened? Oh, and he broke his wrist. And I told him, well, the broken wrist is from freezing on your. You didn't let go of your handlebar. You were holding your handlebar at impact. And I said, and the handlebar you're holding was your right one. That's your gas. What you holding your gas for, I don't know. The left one is your brake. But that one let go. You let go of your brake, but you held onto the gas, you know. I said, whoa. But I said, that shows you in panic. And I told you, when you're going to hit, know you're going to hit. And just accept the fact, I'm going to hit. And you just react from that. And that's not saying, you're supposed to be evil Knievel and stuff like that. But, you just prepare for these things. And you never know when they're going to come. We used to do what ifs all the time. When I used to be a rider with him in the police department, we would do what ifs. Talking, we're in the car and we just cruise, we're patrolling. And we do scenarios. So he'll give me a scenario. And I'll tell him, well, this is what I would do. And I give him a scenario. What are we going to do? It's what ifs. And we do that. And that's more mental preparation. I mean, it's not like we were like today's cities. Today's cities, I do not know how these policemen work. They do it. But before when I used to ride with them, you're patrolling and you're looking. And we would, run through scenarios. And we would handle cases and stuff like that. But you try and stay in control. If control will beat fear, right? But you gotta have the balance. Everything is a balance. Fear is part of that balance. If you go around in the world and and that's what we're getting to. You look at the people today, the way they act up. A lot of them are acting out of fear. Look at the suspects when they, why were you running? I was afraid. Well, that's what they use. That's the excuse that everybody's using. I was afraid. Well, if you was afraid, why are you running? I didn't know who you were. Yeah, right. We were the popo. It just, a lot of them, there's so much BS out there. And fear comes from ignorance. It leads to BS. Everything's happening like that. Folks, get out of there. Get out of that river. Get out of the fear. I'm not saying go around and contest everything, but learn not to just go with things. Take everything with a grain of salt, especially government. What they tell you now, and the government's getting harder and harder time. Even in Hawaii, and Hawaii is staunch. We are staunch Democrats. And I meet people. I meet them all the time. And they don't like change. Why? Because they're afraid. People are afraid of change. Because they're so conditioned to just listen, trust your government. Government will do nothing wrong. Trust your educational system. I trust, and I do trust my educational system because I have the old system. The system that, these teachers were there to teach. And they made sure that we learned. That's the system I believe in. I don't believe in the new system now. And that's why I said, colleges like Harvard, USC, I mean, all the big name colleges, they're having a hard time because they got away from that old system and they went to the new corrupted system. Money, 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 money. That's why I had these past two talks about, first money, power, now fear. See how these things just go, they go together. All these, and like I said, they all can be used positive, but unfortunately, negative is easier. Negative's always easier. I don't know. I mean, that's just the way things are, right? I mean, it's supposed to be easy that way to maybe test us. You know, are we really, going the way we're supposed to go, or it? I don't know. I don't know how that works. Or we're supposed to rise above that fear, and that's how you change. You change because you not conquer, but you control your fear of change, and you actually change. You evolve. Remember, that are we products of evolution or creation? And due to our lack of evolution, I say creation. I mean, that's the only two choices you hear. I mean, we weren't eggs and we weren't cracked. And we were, um, we had to have been created. That's why um, my idea, my hypothesis, if you want to say, is that we are a form of creation. And one day I will talk about that. It's I don't know if you're ready for it, but I've got to talk about that. Creation over evolution. I'm going to put Darwin down. I'm going to put, believe it or not, I'm going to attack Einstein's theory of relativity and time. And I'm also going to go against the physic, astrophysicists' idea that the moon um, governs our tides on Earth. But fear is something that you've got to control. And I'm getting some mean static right now, but we'll see if it really is in the recording or not. But that's what I want. I want you to get your fear out of the way. I want you to control it. I want you to turn it into a weapon, not not a deterrent. Turn fear, and I don't mean courage is just lack. They say it's a lack of fear. No, courage is you take your fear and you use it positively. Um, the Medal of Honor, this Congressional Medal of Honor, is given for usually given to dead people, right? You got to give up your life or do something like that to get it. It's go figure, right? In order to be a brave person, you got to die. No, they, they know the odds, they know the dangers, and they figure ways around it, and they equalize or they neutralize. That's the word. They neutralize the danger of the situation. And the extent that you neutralize it is the extent that you're going to get the Medal of Honor or not. Which is, yeah, that's, they call that productive. I don't. I just call that understanding fear. You get guys that come back, special forces and all that, and because they're special forces, they have their own problems too. And theirs is they lack fear. They're taught. Imagine being taught to, look fear in the face and laugh at it. I mean, we see it on TV, with NCIS with Gibbs, right? He wasn't special forces; he was sniper. But he goes against, he goes on bases and he talks to these guys in the special forces, and yes, they're being dramatized. But I have met people like that, especially drunk ones in Waikiki when or downtown when you're arresting people. Yeah, you meet guys like that. And they are, I mean, they're tough suckers. These boys are tough. Um, several of them, it takes a couple, maybe three officers to hold them down, especially if they're drunk, because it's amazing how much strength you can get from liquor. And oh, don't even get me started with PCP. I've seen PCP, and you want to talk about lack of fear. These little hundred something nothing people have superhuman strength. It's everything that I can do. And like I said, at that time, I was like 395. You know, um, I was a big boy, and I everything I had to hold the person down. Yes, I got involved, and I wasn't supposed to, but it was different back then. I had the confidence given to me, and the policemen, they, the especially, and I'm talking about sergeants and lieutenants, and they knew that I would not do something stupid. You know, I knew how my best friend was a defense instructor. He taught me. I knew I knew how to handle somebody, and I did, and I had the size and I had the strength. I had um, it wasn't extraordinary strength. It's just that I was big and I had the strength from weightlifting and stuff like that. So I could handle myself, and I was given the opportunity to, if I needed to. They trusted me, and I could subdue the person. We'd get them in cuffs, and then we wouldn't work them over, rough them up, anything. Um, I rarely talked to them because I knew that that's one thing I can't control is this mouth. Once I start on you, man, I will cut you so low. Sarcasm is me. I am sarcasm, and I'll insult you and using a vernacular that you wouldn't even understand. And I am calling you the most vile, despicable thing that I can think of. And I would feel great, and the person would be, huh? Especially when he's drunk. You don't understand, so no sense you talk to him. You got the right to remain silent. Use it. Yeah. Shut the, what up. Yes. I can swear with the best of them. I can. I don't. I choose not to. But yes, I know the words, and I will say the words when it's warranted to get your attention. I will drop that F bomb. Don't like to because that's the way I was brought up, but I can. But yeah, it's fear. And what do you do? Why are you speaking like that to a person? Because you're trying to get the fear. Well, that's why when they swear at me, I laugh. You know, they call me an SOB, son of a bitch. My reaction to that is, oh, you met my mom. And it angers them to no avail. They look at me, I go, oh, yeah, my mom, she could be. I mean, I love that woman madly. But yeah, she had that side and she knew how to use it. Maybe she taught me how to do that, how to use fear and how to use, for aggression rather than intimidation. But yeah, my mom could be a bitch, but she wasn't. But she could be. Or they, like now, remember I told you, flip me the bird, and that would be the red button for me? Well, no longer. You flip me the bird, and I just tell you, no, 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 no. Number one is with this finger. This finger is number one. Using the wrong finger, get it straight. And they get all upset. But that's how you turn a negative into a positive. And it gets people even more mad because it doesn't work. When they try to intimidate you and you turn that intimidation into a positive, it angers them. And the anger means only one thing: I'm winning. I'm getting you. Yeah. And then what comes out if I start getting you? And then you start realizing that I have you. Fear. What comes with fear? Control. See how it works? And that's like, hey, it's like 101. You just got a lesson. Pay your $250 at the desk. But yeah, just control your fear. Use your fear and control it. And learn how to turn it around and be a positive for you. And you'll be a positive yourself. Anyway, we've come to the time, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're not afraid to subscribe and like and tell your friends about me, please. I'm trying to get along over here. And like I said, we're on page 25, and I don't know how many pages we're going to go, but we're going to go as many as I can, you know. Um, and you guys just have a great week. Full week coming up. No, no holidays. Shucks. But from me to you, as always, ahuiho, malama pono, and always from my heart, all my love, aloha. Bye bye.